You guys remember I told you that the former head of like all Assassin's Creed stuff was booped out and left the company. He was a guy named Alexis Cotier, okay? I don't think I've ever directly spoken to him. He was there at the studio when I was there for AC Shadows. He was walking around and he's like in the background whenever we were doing like a group thing. So he was watching closely, but he was previously in charge of like all Assassin's Creed stuff, okay? Like franchise, bigwig, big dude. Like he was a very important person in the hierarchy. His tenure in that position, I mean, he's been at Ubisoft for like 2 decades, but his tenure started, I believe, in 2021, give or take a year. I think it was 2020 or 2021, but he was basically the guy behind the Infinity Hub. He was the guy that had the vision for the next decade, basically, of AC. So his big push seems to have been the Infinity Hub, creating games under one umbrella. I personally don't like the vision, but his other thing, and the one thing I do agree with him on that I think will potentially help, is that his vision was, instead of trying to make an everything game every like 3 years, his goal was to instead have smaller experiences that give like much more effort for particular niches. So instead of having AC Valhalla that tries to satisfy the old school fans and then the live service fans and the RPG fans and the story fans and the stealth fans, instead of trying to have one game that makes everybody happy and then as a result you only make like 70% of them happy, or like, you know, instead of trying to do everything so you only do things to like a C+ level, his goal was to have smaller games that can do things at a B+ or an A- or an A+ level. So you have a game that's just dedicated to stealth, and then you have a game that's just dedicated to the RPG. And then you have a multiplayer game that's just dedicated to keeping live service fans happy. And that's kind of part of his goal. And I think that will work way better than trying to turn like every game into Red Dead, Fortnite, Witcher 3, Assassin's Creed, Pong. You know, it just doesn't work. But why am I talking about him? Why did I bring him up? Well, there's news. There's news. He was booted out of his role in the wake of the Vantage establishment. Basically, Ubisoft received a bunch of cash from Tencent. Tencent formed with Ubisoft a new company called Vantage Studios. So you have Ubisoft and Vantage Studios. Vantage Studios is owned by Ubisoft. They own about 40 or 75% of it. Tencent owns 25%. It's technically outside of Ubisoft though. Vantage licenses and has the rights to all of Assassin's Creed, Rainbow Six, and Far Cry that they licensed from Ubisoft. Okay, so they're technically outside, but they have all of the rights to that. And as a result, also all of the studios, specifically like Montreal, Quebec, I don't think Bordeaux is technically inside Vantage Studios, but a lot of those big guys, I think Ubisoft Massive, I don't think is. There's a bunch of those big guys that are tacked in there, right? When they formed Vantage Studios, they restructured a bunch of stuff, and they basically went to Alexis Cotier and offered him a new position, and he left. That's all we knew about it. With this, it's been revealed, thanks to reporting from Tom Henderson with Insider Gaming. Again, shout out them. You should have them bookmarked. They have an app on like your phone you can get for the latest gaming news. Highly recommend it. They do fantastic work. But he reported this out. Former Assassin's Creed boss is suing Ubisoft for $1.3 million. The former Assassin's Creed boss, Alexis Cotier, has filed a claim with Superior Court of Quebec for a total of $1.3 million in compensation and damages against Ubisoft. The file comes months after Ubisoft announced that Alexis Cotier left the company voluntarily, a claim which Cotier later denied, stating he was asked to step aside from the company. Remember when all this happened, we were not clear. Is this that he was fired, or is it that they offered him a new role but with like a pay cut so he left, or did they tell him you're not going to be able to, like, we're taking the franchise in this direction, and as a matter of principle he sat down? Like we just don't know. But now he's claiming that he was basically pushed out. In a lengthy LinkedIn post, he said, "Many of you have expressed surprise that I would choose to leave Assassin's Creed after so many years, especially given the passion I still hold for it. The truth is simple. I did not make that choice." He continued later, "But I also owe it to my teams, past and present, to say this plainly. I did not walk away. I stayed at my post until Ubisoft asked me to step aside." A new report from CBC Radio Canada states that he is now taking Ubisoft to court, claiming $1.3 million in severance pay and moral damages. This must be a Canadian thing. Moral damages? Like what? According to the report, Cotier was told during a management meeting in late summer of 2025 that Ubisoft's new subsidiary with Tencent was looking to find a, quote, head of franchise, which was a position he was not offered. Instead, he was offered the position of head of production, which would have seen him reporting to someone else. So he was previously the guy. Now he'd be someone reporting to the guy. Right? The lawsuit states that in September, the position to lead a creative house with abstract outlines was offered. After lengthy negotiations, Ubisoft reportedly asked him to make a decision on the changes, to which Cotier formally demanded that the company pay him severance. In response, Ubisoft reportedly told him to not show up for work as planned on October 13th and to continue his reflection period until the company responds to his formal notice. The next day, Ubisoft announced via press release and internal emails that he was leaving his position voluntarily to explore new opportunities. That sounds messy, dude. The term for this lawsuit, or this type of lawsuit, it's basically like when a company tries to manipulate you into quitting so that they don't have to pay you severance. That in many countries is considered illegal because it's a way of them manipulating you into quitting so they don't have to pay you severance or any of the contractual obligations that they have. It's kind of a big no-no. So an example would be if I had a contract with Jacob to be my editor and it said, hey, if I fire you, I have to pay you 3 months or 6 months salary, right? While you look for a new job. But I'm like, ooh, I don't want to pay that. So I go and I tell Jacob, hey, I'm going to now give you a new position where you are going to be working out of a coat closet, and you're going to also have 18-hour days, and you also, like, I assign him something really monotonous. I put a manager above him that's just like super toxic and is super oppressive, basically pushing him to quit. It's basically an indirect way of firing. It's like the toxic thing that people do in high school when they don't want to be the bad guy to break up with someone. So they just stop responding to texts to get them to break up with them so they're not the bad guy. That's basically what they were allegedly doing here, right? Sounds like his current studio. It's a bedroom. Yeah, ghosting. So basically, the exact term, it's like firing by, let's see, what is it? What is that? Constructive discharge. That's what it's called. It does sound like a sexual thing. It's not, I swear to God. Constructive discharge or dismissal in employment occurs when an employer makes working conditions so intolerable or hostile that a reasonable person would feel forced to quit, making the resignation legally treated as if the employee were fired, often allowing for wrongful termination claims despite the employee resigning. It's not a direct firing, but a forced resignation due to severe changes in terms, harassment, or pressure, effectively making the termination involuntary. That's what he's claiming happened. So Ubisoft is saying, no, you quit. You don't get your severance and stuff. You quit. He's saying you forced me to quit, and any reasonable person would have quit, which makes it effectively firing, that you fired me effectively. That's his claim. This is going to be tough, I think, to prove in a court, because obviously, like, how do you determine what a reasonable person would do? It's basically going to come down to what a judge decides is reasonable based on the letter of the law in Quebec. My guess is this is just one of those things they settle. They probably throw him $500,000. He just goes away. They have him sign an NDA. He can never talk about Assassin's Creed again, and he just moves on with his life. That's typically how this type of thing works, especially in like high profile situations, right? But I think what's particularly interesting is that Ubisoft tried very hard to get him a role where he was not doing what he was before. They were trying very hard to push him out into a different role where, as you can see, they offered him things like creative house. So he would lead a creative house with abstract outlines. So he'd be in charge of a studio or a team doing stuff, probably just broad Assassin's Creed creative stuff. So, but he didn't want to do that. He wanted to be in charge of a lot of stuff for the franchise. And this was effectively like a major demotion. So he's like, and this is also part of his claim, right? Is that he can go in and say, hey, if I'm being paid, I don't know how much he was making, but if maybe he's like, I'm getting paid $300,000 a year, and I'm in charge of this whole team. And you're offering me a new position where I get paid $100,000 and I'm in charge of 3 people. That is such a major demotion that it's effectively like you're firing me. You know, and if you change the terms and you say, hey, if you're working in retail and you're paid $20 an hour, and then your boss comes to you and says, hey, listen, I've got a job for you. You can't keep doing the job you're doing now, but I can offer you a job paying you $7 an hour. They're basically firing you because no reasonable person would agree to those terms, right? That's what he's claiming when it went down. Like I said, I think that they'll settle, but what I find just so interesting is that they, whatever it is, they really did not want him in that big, important role. Now, as I've told you guys before, I do not have a lot of confidence in the new leadership of Assassin's Creed. The new guy, Charlie Guillemot, is the son of the CEO, and he, man, just again, whenever I need to explain why I'm not confident, the new co-CEO, he is in charge of all Assassin's Creed, all Rainbow Six, and all Far Cry. His last project before he became co-CEO of this multi-billion-dollar venture was Unagi. You'll see his name listed at the very bottom. This is him, Charlie Guillemot. Okay, what is this? It was founded by ex-Ubisoft execs. They conveniently don't mention that one of those is the son of the CEO, but it was founded in 2022. Since then, we've shipped 4 Web3 games, launched an anime brand, and developed a token-based economy. It is basically an AI Web3 NFT buzzword simulator. And I think what they did is they created a platform where you can have an AI character that just like stands, and then you can collect NFT things for them. And they tried to basically make Facebook and Instagram, but for NFTs, which, if that sounds insane, yeah. Like I've seen a lot of crypto bro slop, and this is a lot for me. You know, but this is like the guy that's now in charge of Far Cry, Rainbow, and Assassin's Creed. This was something he spent years doing and that he was really proud of. Okay, so forgive me for being skeptical. If he thought this was good, woof. Okay, and now he's in charge of all of this stuff. Now, there's 2 ways this could go. Either he's got some like amazing vision and he's like, I know what I'm gonna do. NFTs for everybody. Assassin's Creed, you get an NFT and you get an AI chatbot agent anime, whatever the hell. And then you get that. Maybe that's what he's gonna do. The other possibility, which I personally really, really hope is the case, is that this is just literally one of those things. Like, I knew a rich kid in high school where his dad wanted him to like get off drugs because he was experimenting with like cocaine and stuff. So his dad bought like a car dealership and just let him go and work on like sports cars and upgrade them and mess with them. And like the business lost money, but it was basically just his way of keeping his son off drugs. Honestly, fair play. If that's what you need to do to keep your son off drugs, as a father, I can respect that, I guess. But it was never about the business. It was about just keeping him off drugs. And the other guy, a guy named Christophe Drenet, he will now be in charge and he'll actually do all of the work. And if you don't know Christophe Drenet, he's been on like executive vice president, producer, managing director on a ton of stuff like AC Valhalla, going all the way down to like Far Cry Primal, Watch Dogs 2 he's listed on. I mean, he's been around forever. So he certainly understands the role and has been involved for a long time. I mean, this guy is like accomplished. Okay, going all the way back to Tom Clancy's Splinter Cell for the GameCube. Okay, maybe he's just gonna sit in the corner office getting massages all day and eating Twinkies, and Christoph will do all of the work. That's what I'm personally hoping for. That he just doesn't do anything. Because I'm gonna be real, and this is what I said in my recent video. Like, literally, my candle is probably more qualified to be CEO of Vantage Studios, because at least this didn't make an AI NFT anime crypto brand. I find that disqualifying. Like, if I find out that you did that, you're not getting the job anymore. This didn't. So I feel it's more qualified. You know, don't drink it, please. No, I wouldn't drink a qualified candidate like this. Man, I have so little confidence with this that it's hard to put into words. So my point with all of this is that, for one, the lawsuit's happening, and I think that it's probably going to settle out of court, and then Mark will go away, and you probably will never hear from him again, because part of the terms is going to be that he can never talk about AC or Ubisoft or anything ever again. So I think this will settle. He'll get a bag. He'll go away. Ubisoft will be happy. They can move on. But what I find fascinating is that they tried for months to get him out. And it seemed to me like his direction was very friendly to Ubisoft. His goal for Assassin's Creed Shadows and for Hexe and for everything else they're doing was seemingly in line with what Ubisoft wanted to do for the rest of their stuff. Like, it was big picture, live service, make these games like multiplayer games that you can monetize long term. Like, that was his big push. The AC Infinity hub, where you have one launcher for all of the Assassin's Creed games, that was his vision. That was his baby. And they wanted desperately to get rid of him. So that tells me they want to take it in a new direction. And the direction could be much better, old school Ubisoft. They could get back on their horse and they could start, putting out AC2s again, or AC Black Flags again, which is possible. I mean, again, we've seen companies that go through a crazy rut and then come out and start dropping Game of the Year contenders after they figure their crap out. It's possible. It's not incredibly likely, but it's possible. But the reason I bring up this guy is because he's the one that's now in charge, and literally when he became in charge is when they started pushing him out. And knowing his judgment, it makes me feel like there's a chance he has a vision, which terrifies me, because his visions for other stuff I have found lacking. Okay. So we'll see where it goes. But what we do know effectively is that they're taking Assassin's Creed in a new direction. That direction might be way better. It might also end up being, just this. I said this at the end of my video on the main channel. I was like, guys, if you add NFT, crypto bro, Web3 crap to Assassin's Creed, to Far Cry, to Rainbow Six, if you thought the crap you got for Shadows was bad, dude, the weeping and wailing and gnashing of teeth will be generational. Like, you cannot even begin to fathom how insane that would be. It would be good for my business. I have so many videos I could make about how stupid that is. But as a fan of Assassin's Creed, somebody that grew up playing these games, I'm like, guys, don't. Don't, because that's something I don't think it could survive. I think that would send the brand into like such a nosedive that it would be very, very difficult to ever recover. Like, very difficult. He took my thing.